Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash. This is HeroQuest, and it's time for another episode of BwodeCast, the podcast-styled series where we talk about all things HeroQuest and sometimes other dungeon crawlers, and is best enjoyed listened to while in the car, perhaps, or during miniature painting. Perhaps you're like me, and you'll set audio tracks to play on YouTube while you're washing dishes. Sometimes I listen to the Elden Ring soundtrack, and sometimes you can even use this sort of content to fall asleep. After all, if you want to fall asleep listening to content about HeroQuest in the hopes that you can finally live your dream, literally, of being the dwarf running around in a dungeon with your fellow comrades, slaying orcs and goblins, well, who's going to argue? Today, the background in my video is the fabled now BoardGameBliss.com page where HeroQuest Jungles of Delthrak was. It's been taken down, and it was taken down long before I got to take a look at it to begin with, but the image is floating around out there, as is my call to attention video on the matter. There is another video out there that I have watched a bit of, from Guarida De Morcar, who is a well-respected figurehead in the LATAM community and just the HeroQuest community in general, who talks about the information that he got from his insider on what the Jungles of Delthrak is. And I will gladly link that video below. It's right here. See, I'm part of the way watching through again after I realized that I could change the subtitles to English, and then I started to scrub around to see different things. Some of the YouTube translation, I've heard that it works really, really well for some people, and for others it doesn't work as well. So I don't know, your experience may vary, and I think that some folks out there will probably correct me, but I know that you can turn on closed captions here in the video itself, and you could do this for any non-English speaking video on YouTube. And if you happen to watch me with subtitles on, you already know this, but you can do it with English-speaking videos too. And you can go to the gear icon here after turning on closed captions and change the subtitles /CC option to something else. It's usually going to be like off, and if it's a Spanish video and you're an English viewer, it'll say Spanish auto-generated. But you can auto-translate this stuff and let YouTube do its best. And in videos where the enunciation and everything is clear, it will do a great job normally, unless there's a lot of slang or stuff like that being used. But anyway, you can watch this video, and I'll definitely link to it in the description below. Guarida De Morcar, you do a fantastic job. I really have a lot of respect for this fellow. But I wanted to talk, obviously, today about the jungle expansion, Jungles of Delthrak. So what is this going to be? Could this be the next druid expansion? Could it have gorillas with hug attacks? Please no. Could it have tribal goblins, witch doctors? I said that Monday, which is today. Now I'll dig into the speculation here in the Discord, in the BwodeCast Q&A channel, and read through everybody's responses that they posted with consent to have their stuff possibly featured in this video. So strap in. We're going to be talking about Jungles of Delthrak. We're going to be speculating. We're going to read through what has been sort of kind of confirmed, although I would use that word carefully, because even though we've got insider information on stuff that's not finished, it's always subject to change from that point. So we could definitely be in a position to provide lots of really good or bad feedback that's really, really positive or negative, both useful, to Avalon Hill. If they're cognizant of this leak, and I'm sure that they are, especially now, then they could dig into what people have to say, because folks might see that, hey, for sure, we know that there's going to be a jungle X-Pack. Maybe not all of the details are completely ironed out. We know that they work something like 18 months in advance. Maybe this is still in a window of time where they've presented ideas that they've let leak out to see what kind of feedback people might have on them. And maybe they can dig into feedback that is seen and discussions that are had, and maybe make improvements based on the feedback for the better, or the perceived better. So that's kind of where my head is at with this sort of thinking. I know folks will have different takes. That's mine. So moving on to the speculation and comments from other people in the Discord. Jay Blackstone said, my thoughts? I say it's definitely a big box. new mini sculpts and possibly add-on tiles, possible druid or dwarf expansion, or maybe a new hero like a ranger. Maybe new alchemy cards to make potions and poisons. New animals like a jaguar, tiger, or new monsters like humanoid elephants, or possibly gorillas, trolls, or salamanders. New jungle-themed items and weapons based on an Aztec theme. Goblin tribes, new dread spells for a goblin witch doctor to use, maybe a temple raid with a new mummy sculpt as a greater mummy or lord. New curses and transformations. New furniture like coffins, tombs, large chests, Aztec-themed sacrifice table. Ribby said, Ribby want ranger, give ranger thanks. Jay Blackstone said, I bet like the orc bard would get a goblin ranger named Bullseye. You know what? I said this a long time ago. Just going to jump in here. Said it a long time ago to Avalon Hill directly and did receive acknowledgement. I want a goblin hero. Specifically, I'd like a female goblin to be a hero. Don't question my decision-making or judgment. That's what I want. I want what I want, and I said what I said. Moving on. Hasington says, I would hope with the second new content box, they would keep the alchemy idea alive. That would give me a reason to keep the Dread Moon treasure cards in, as I only tend to keep the cards in during the expansions they are from, which is something that people do a little differently, person to person, Zargon to Sargon. Some people mix everything together because they want all that complexity right from the very beginning. They want to be able to hire mercenaries in the trial. They want to give their people gold and play with the rules and really just dig in and mix stuff together and have fun. That's great. Other people wait till they get to the expansion and then mix in the cards appropriate for that expansion while the heroes are in that campaign. And when the heroes complete it, they put everything back. And then when they move on to the next expansion, they take all the stuff out of that expansion, mix it with the base game, and play that campaign. Then there is a third tier of people that take all of the contents from the expansion, put it into the game system, and when the heroes move on to the next campaign, they leave that stuff in and add on the stuff from the very next campaign in. But to kind of speak on Hasington's comment on the alchemy idea, it would be really cool to see alchemy reintroduced because they would have to reintroduce it. They couldn't rely on you to have Rise of the Dread Moon. Some people might get this expansion before Rise of the Dread Moon, and Avalon Hill have made it pretty clear they don't want you to have to go buy other stuff to do the current X-Pack or whatever. They just need you to have the game system. And I've said that like a broken record on his channel. But they would probably reintroduce the alchemy system, but have different components. They probably wouldn't allow you to create the exact same things. They'd probably use this as an opportunity to keep things original and fresh. So the alchemy system, it would be my speculation, if it were included, would be something that would allow you to create things that were not in Rise of the Dread Moon. It would have new ingredients and new results. And you, as the enterprising Zargon homebrewer, would be able to take the content from both of the expansions and combine them as you saw fit. But you would not need one of these expansions to do the things in the other. That's what I think would happen if that were to play out that way. Storm and Wolf said, I hope and still think we get the Druid with the Perpetual Darkness. I do hope we get some kind of Ranger or an Amazon. I would like an Amazon. Also, all kinds of jungle goodness, and an Amazon would easily fit within a pyramid dungeon type inspired by South American stuff. Rangers are also more northern in my opinion, or maybe woodland, but not so much jungle. Storm and Wolf also said, regarding monsters and such, I would like some undead stuff with arrows, thinking Indiana Jones style, loads of traps, snakes, alligators, crocodiles, tribal warriors, undead tribal warriors, evil snake priests, and maybe a fitting overlay, new board, obviously artifacts and golden statues triggering traps once taken. I know another take would be lizard and or snake people and a certain Aztec vibe with human sacrifices and such. C. Kashim said there was a rumor not long about an abomination-focused expansion. Maybe this jungle-themed expansion is that. Bohemia said, talking about conspiracies, when the rumor of the water expansion came out, I hypothesized this map, guessing the Monk's map is actually upside down, and the Wilds being a river jungle swamp region, fitting with the clues I gathered. Let's click on that really quick. We're in Discord, so you're going to hear my Discord pings pop off. Here's the arena, the Ogre Kingdom, parts of the Monk's map. This is actually the Monk's map as it was presented, but it's flipped upside down, and we are given a bit of speculation that this island here could be Elithorn. This could be the Realm, as it is known, our base game system, the Wild here, and the Northlands here, with Ice Mountain speculated to be here. I think that it's a pretty clever take to view the map as upside down, because there are cultures that view the global map in different ways. We don't all see the global map the exact same way. Some of us do look at that map that we know to be the map of the continents and the oceans to be flipped completely upside down, which should make sense if you think about it. Sid Tandy said, theory. Avalon Hill has no idea what to put in the expansion. They leaked a title and watched the fans making up all the ideas, which is kind of what I said long form at the beginning of the video. It definitely could be that they're watching out for bits and pieces of feedback if they have a little bit more room for conceptualization and for putting things in. And if you watch the Guarida De Morcar, I know I butchered that video, then you will see that, or hear rather, that he says nothing's final yet. Nothing is being produced according to the insider. So I would say while the concept stage is something that can be drawn out a bit, and there are still many stages after that before production, and things could probably get pretty tight, that I'm pretty convinced myself that we are in a window where we could definitely influence the outcome of this product. Probably not in a large way. Like, it's probably going to have the systems that they are planning in place. It's probably going to have the quest progression that they've come up with and tested and understand the difficulty of and things like that. But if somebody says, you know, I really want there to be lizards on the doors, and everybody chimes in and says, yeah, lizards on the doors with this one, please. And somebody else is like, yeah, no, lizards on the doors, 100%, no complaints. And then, you know, everybody's in agreement about lizards on the doors. Avalon Hill may have it in them at the time to put a lizard on the doors. I know that doesn't make sense. It was just off the cuff. It was just out of the blue, but that's the example I'm giving, and that's what we're going with. So let's move on. Sid Tandy was joking, maybe, and said, but my guess is really abominations and temples. Best lizard men substitute we could ask for. Logo said Amazon as hero or mercenary. 2 votes for Amazon. Rudolph 666 says, I say an expansion with the druid, of course. All mythic heroes came with an original quest box, and because they are still struggling with the crypt, they made a jungle adventure and it has a small outside board. If this is all true, I go and become a psychic. I agree. Sarbek said, Beastmen would be awesome. Yami Fair said, Druid in a jungle with snake men. Rudolph said, an altar for Aztec-like dread blood rituals, rolling boulder traps, etc. I said, if you play it or don't play it, the results of the lore should be the exact same. Because it was a Indiana Jones reference. That was stupid. I don't need to read my own comments. Mr. Big B said, whatever the setting, jungle, desert, cave, etc., HeroQuest needs some snake men. Nothing says sword and sorcery like the classic snake men. I'm going to cut in and say, I agree. I love the snake men, the cobra people that are in the Dark World setting. We have the last boss of the Dark World dungeon crawling board game, and then we have the snake men that come with Dark World's expansion, Village of Fear. Now, this is not stuff that's accessible. It's out of print, has been for a long time, and it's not the cheapest set of games to get. Actually, Dark World's base game does go up and down, but the expansions remain expensive, if not outright impossible to get sometimes. But those snake men look awesome, and they remind me heavily of the reptile snake men that were in Conan the Adventurer, which of course is a cartoon that I loved when I was a kid. And so yeah, jungle snake men, I'm in full agreement there. I would love that. Yami Fear said snake men, giant tiger men, humongous snakes. Every jungle temple adventure needs those. C. Kashim said ratfolk. Did re-mention ratfolk, but ratfolk do not exist. Geek Golden Kitty said, if jungle is on the horizon, can we see your Dinosaurs Hall making a debut in a suitable environment? And the answer to that is, of course, yes, 100%. Did you even need to ask? He leveled up with that response. Ribby said, Dino Riders confirmed. I'm going to homebrew it. I'm going to homebrew it. I'm going to be one of many who homebrew it, but it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen officially, we're going to have the heroes on the backs of dinosaurs. Storm and Wolf did post a few rumors in the old Inform for those of us who don't check it regularly, and a TLDR at the end, but just to go through each one of these bullet points, which do talk about the Guarida De Morcar's video, Jungle of Delthrak expansion topic thread, and there's also a Wizards of Zargon expansion topic thread. Also from the video, the retail version of Crypt of Perpetual Darkness will be released in Q3 2024. A bundle of presumably female heroes from the Mythic tier and perhaps other extras will be released in late 2024. The plan is to release a remastered version of the base game in 2025, perhaps with new stuff or quests. Dark Company? This revised version is not approved for languages other than English. Here's the stuff about Jungles of Delthrak. The title, Jungles of Delthrak, is subject to change in the future, the title is not yet fully confirmed. The leak on these retail websites seems to have been a mistake on Hasbro's part. The reference of the product is correct, but it was planned to include it in a later catalog of Hasbro products, not now. It will include a new hero. It's not confirmed if it could be the Druid of the Mythic tier or not. Note from me, I still think it's nonsense, since Crypt of Perpetual Darkness is now also pretty confirmed. The story will have to do with water and, of course, abominations. An abomination boss miniature will be included, described in this old post. Also includes reptilian-like monsters, similar to Yuan Ti from D&D, a kind of lizard man, and also crocodile man look. It is planned to be released in other languages in early 2025, but it looks like the English version will be released much earlier as usual. Now, all of these bullet points are things from the video, and yeah, a lot of it is subject to change. Some of them are points that are a given. They don't need to be from an insider source. They're things we already know, like the title being subject to change and the leak being a mistake and not something that was supposed to come out. That's pretty evident. Here's the stuff about Wizards of Morcar. According to the leaks that the YouTube channel Guarida De Morcar has told here, it seems that we are finally getting a Wizards of Sargon expansion for a HeroQuest remake. The title is only a guess because the title is not confirmed. Release is scheduled for 2025. The release configuration will be as follows. I said release, I meant quest. The quest configuration, reading too fast, is as follows. 3 solo quests, 5 quests from Wizards of Morcar, 2 additional quests with a final fight against Zargon. It will include a wizard hero miniature. It will include a Zargon miniature. Note, the whole thing is only summarized by me, Storm and Wolf. Links to the sources are included. To me, the whole thing seems credible based on earlier leaks from same source and also makes sense, but take it with a grain of salt. They are and will remain only rumors. At least for now. Jay Blackstone added, abominations and lizardmen are a strong possibility as it needs to make sense why the abominations exist in the HQ world. Storm and Wolf made a HeroQuest FAQ for new people, along with most of the questions that get asked again and again in the Facebook groups, and the link is posted in the BwodeCast channel in the Discord. Blood Knight, Sam Lotfi, said, would love to have a double-sided board if there's a new remake or 3rd edition with the classic dungeon on one side and outdoor ruins or something of the sort on the other side. And Jay Blackstone said, I think it'd be interesting if Avalon Hill released a new HeroQuest board or boards. So we've pretty much gotten all of the speculation and everything in the channel out of the way. Folks who set up search alerts for search engines that support that sort of thing will be able to get the Jungles of Delthrak to ping them whenever there's new content out there that gets returned in searches for those engines. And people are looking for that product number that was shared in the video that I did previously on this, the put a spotlight on it, get the information out there video. So really, really cool to see that. I am in full agreement with a jungle expansion. I would have also been in full agreement with a desert expansion. Really cool to see a jungle, though. I'm in full agreement that the main enemy of the expansion should be crocodile or snake man-like. That stuff is very exciting to me. Lots of homebrew possibilities. If we get an entire sort of new race of being, I hope that there are many roles in that race. I hope that there are many classes of enemy. Yes, I'm aware class is not a concept that exists in HeroQuest as far as official terminology, but class does exist in HeroQuest everywhere in the game. I hope that we see snake men archers. I hope that we see snake men berserkers. I hope that we see the alligator mages. And you can take all of those concepts and mix and match them whatever way you want. I'm still going to be on board and think it's cool. I don't care if the alligators are the muscle of the group, if the little snake men are like the archers and the ones that strike quickly, perhaps the rogues, or if we get sort of like something that could be a proxy for the Warhammer skinks. And ultimately, I think that this is sort of that answer. The answer to the question that was never asked. What if HeroQuest had the Saurus Lizardmen and the skinks from Warhammer included into its initial release at some point? If it had continued to go, well, those monsters were not going to be used in any of the US editions if those expansions had come out. We have lists of those sort of, Discord is, we're going to close Discord. We have lists of the enemies that would have been included that follow the 3-2-2-1 format of number of enemies and types of enemies. And so I don't think that they would ever have been in those expansions. But if HeroQuest had continued on, if there had been yet more European expansions, yet more collaboration with the licenses of the different sculpts and characters that were in the Warhammer fantasy world, how much more would we have seen come over? I know we would have seen the Minotaur at some point for, I believe, the Wizards expansion. And I know that we would have seen Skaven in the form of Ratmen by some name or another with the Dwarf expansion. Would the golems have been based on some specific Warhammer creature? I don't know. Would it have been a completely original sculpt? Maybe, because the really poorly done Elf Archers and Elf Warriors and Sinestra miniatures of the Classic Edition were not based, I don't think, on any specific Warhammer miniature. I think they were completely original. And boy, what a price was paid, in my opinion. I don't mean to come off too negative. I know some folks have taken some issue with the few complaints that I have whenever I do complain, but I mean, seriously, their heads are so small. They don't look like elves when you put them up next to the elf. I'll never not grumble a little bit about that. But point being, would we have eventually seen things like the really, honestly, mass-produced skinks and lizardmen? Could we have hoped to see the also somewhat mass-produced bats? Would we have gotten tomb lords? Would we have gotten giant spiders? I mean, anything's possible because it's impossible to say what would have happened. For speculation on what's going to happen with this expansion when it comes out, I don't want to speculate on timeframes or guesses. I have no reason to doubt what's being said there. I also have no reason to doubt that everything is subject to change, so I won't really get too serious about it. I do honestly think it will be a big box, and ever since the Ogre Horde was confirmed to be a big box, I'm pretty sure everything going forward will be a big box. I actually have my suspicions that Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, when it is finally released, will be a big box as well, because there's just so much stuff that actually does come with, and if they pile stuff on with it to expand the contents into something of a more suitable expansion, well, by the time they've added anything, really, they're going to necessitate that large box format. I know there's a couple of folks out there as well that are going to be upset to some degree that Crypt of Perpetual Darkness isn't getting released first, and that's justifiable because it's still locked behind scalpers. It's still locked behind people who had access to the Mythic tier and don't want to part with their goods, or people who had access but want to sell the pieces of it for outrageous amounts of money. I can say at the very least that the editions of the expansions that came with the Mythic tier for the Spirit Queen's Torment and Prophecy of Talor are now so deprecated. They are so useless now next to the official releases that the prices for those should justifiably plummet, and those of us who don't want to get the retail versions and who want the Mythic versions should be able to acquire those at least a more reasonable price than we have been able to acquire them. But Crypt of Perpetual Darkness is one that still eludes us, and I think that too is justifiable because of the licensing. I don't think any of that is public, and I've already said it many times on the channel. That one probably took more time to iron out due to who was in charge of it, who made it, what restrictions they placed upon it. All of that stuff is a valid take in my eyes because it was very much a collaboration between two parties, and one of those parties probably negotiated and leveraged just a little bit more control than the other. So that particular expansion, in my eyes, makes sense to not release as soon as the other ones, and in this case, not as soon as completely original content. So if this is the Abomination expansion, basically, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see different forms of Abomination or an Abomination boss. I hope that we get lots of jungle-themed cards and content with this. If we get board tiles, I hope they represent a large chunk of the board being outdoor. The Frozen Horror has a sizable tile that you place on the board to overlay part of it. It gets tragically underused, and Against the Ogre Horde should have a similar tile coming in with it because the classic expansion had a very large tile as well that you placed down that represented, again, the outdoors. And it was used probably more than the Frozen Horrors tile was used, I think, but it was definitely used with more effect. If we get another outdoor tile and it's all jungly, it'll be kind of sad if you think about it because you won't be able to really use these tiles together unless you're homebrewing a scenario in which you've got like I don't know, you could let your imagination run wild, really, and you could totally do this, but you could have like a tower that's causing the weather all around to just really screw up and really change the climates, or it could be a sort of time warping tower, or interdimensional planes that travel between worlds. And so on the same board, you've got the large board tile that comes with the Frozen Horror, the large outdoor tile of the planes that comes with against the Ogre Horde, and then the potential tile that could come with this expansion that could potentially be all jungle themed. And then you could take the fourth board tile that shows the bar in Crypt of Perpetual Darkness and place that in the fourth corner, and you could have just a crazy time-bending, world-traveling single quest. And I think that would be really cool. Very, very strange, very unconventional, but still totally fitting some way, somehow, if you can imagine it. I'm still waiting for my Ratmen to make an appearance in some way, some form. I really hope that that's a thing that can happen. It would be really cool if this expansion had a sort of really minor or small or weak mob that we could introduce in other expansions. Something like a pile of rats or a pile of snakes, something that's not going to have a ton of body points or any sort of super deadly ability. Just something that is kind of weak, not the same stats as a goblin, but along those lines, and maybe a multitude of it so that we can place them, sprinkle them around our quests and actually have more of a, oh, there's many of these little things that we have to address, rather than just a few, just a couple of magus, guards, or assassins, or specters. I also am on board with the idea of traps coming with this, and lots of traps and things that are triggered by traps and treasures that you get, and then the board suddenly has boulders and you've got to outrun the boulders, or rooms start collapsing. That stuff needs play tested. It needs attention paid to how it goes down, because there are a couple of quests in the base game and the first two expansions for HeroQuest that feature these sorts of mechanics. And I think that they can go south pretty quick, leading to the players kind of having to metagame to get through it. But what do you think about the jungles of Delthrak? Will you be booking a flight to the jungles? Will you be climbing the pyramids, braving the swamps, fighting off the snakes? That's not something that somebody actually does. You get bit by a snake or you avoid it. That there's no third option. But Ash, some people wrangle the snakes. They capture them. That's what Big Human wants you to think. The only chance we have against the snakes are when the rat men finally come up from their underground I'm kidding. They don't exist. They don't exist. Guys, comment anything you'd like down below. As always, thank you so much for watching and for your fervent support of the channel. I really appreciate all of you. And I will see you in the next episode. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to join the Discord so you can lurk or talk or share your own works or theories or what have you. And bye for now.